Iris Rook stood before the shattered view of Earth, the last fragment of her planet's glory. The planet was a dying husk, cities smoldering ruins, skies darkened by the ash of war. The once lush, green expanses were now a battlefield, the debris of fallen empires scattered like forgotten dreams. Humanity had fallen, but not without a fight. She gripped the cold steel of the command console, her fingers digging into the surface as her mind raced. The plan was supposed to be simple. A surgical strike, a quick in and out to cripple the alien flagship in orbit. It should have worked. It had to work. Status update, Captain, a voice crackled through her earpiece, gruff and tired, but unmistakably steady. It was Lieutenant Arlen, her right-hand man, the one she trusted more than anyone else in this hellish world. But trust, Iris had learned, was a fragile thing. The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she shoved it aside. There was no time for doubt now. Arlen, we need to move, she snapped, glancing over her shoulder at the tactical map projected in front of her. The alien fleet was closing in, far too fast for comfort. She couldn't afford to waste a second. Send the signal. Initiate the strike. He hesitated. Are you sure? We've got one shot at this. If we miss. We won't miss, Iris interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. We cannot miss. Arlen didn't argue. Understood, Captain. Iris turned her attention back to the screen, the pulse of red lights marking the enemy's advance. They were already in Earth's atmosphere, approaching Sunspire Academy. Humanity's last sanctuary, built into the remains of Earth's greatest orbital defense station, was their final hope. If they fell, the war was over. She had led her soldiers, commanded fleets, orchestrated defenses, her entire life had been a chain of battles, each one more brutal than the last. Yet here she was, facing a cold, bitter truth, everything depended on this one mission. The lights flickered, then steadied, as the drone-like ships of her covert strike force engaged. Her heart pounded as the countdown began. 5 minutes to launch. The weight of leadership pressed down harder than ever. Every decision she made, every order, every choice, had consequences. And the stakes were impossible to ignore. Failure would mean the extinction of everything humanity had built. The memories of lost comrades, the sacrifices made, the promises broken, it was all riding on this. And there was no one else. The comms buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Arlen. Captain Rook, a cold voice crackled through, alien and familiar in equal measure. This is Zulvar of the Star Dominion. Do you truly think your people can defy us forever? You cling to a dying world as if it has any meaning left. We will end this conflict today. Iris's pulse quickened, her teeth grinding together. She knew the voice, had heard it too many times in her nightmares. Zulvar, the warlord who had orchestrated the collapse of humanity's last defense, the one who believed his species' superior intellect justified the extermination of all others. He was relentless, merciless, and in his eyes, humanity was nothing more than a disease. You talk too much, Iris muttered, her hand steady on the command console as she spoke into the comms. I'm not listening to your speeches anymore, Zulvar. Today, you're going to learn why they call us the Immortal Deathworlders. The alien's laughter echoed across the comms, a twisted, chilling sound. Do you truly think a few bombs will save your species? You are nothing. A dying race of broken remnants. Surrender now, and I'll make your death quick. No, Iris said, her voice low but unwavering. We fight. We always fight. She turned to her team of operatives, her elite squad of soldiers. They were the best humanity had to offer, trained for this moment. Their faces were grim but focused, their resolve as solid as the iron that encased their bodies in combat armor. They were ready. As she watched them prepare, her mind flashed to the faces of her family, the ones she had lost during the initial wave of the invasion. She'd been forced to leave them behind, sacrificing everything for the survival of humanity. Each night, their faces haunted her. But today, she would make sure their deaths had meaning. Move out, Iris commanded. Her soldiers nodded silently, moving with precision as they climbed into their fighter craft, their voices locked behind the comms. The plan was simple: hit them fast, hit them hard, and get out before the aliens even knew what hit them. The clock was ticking. She couldn't afford to hesitate. The hangar doors opened with a deafening screech. In that moment, Iris felt the weight of history pressing down on her. There was no turning back now. 2 minutes to launch. The fighter jets shot into space, their engines roaring with raw power. Each one carried a payload capable of ripping apart the alien flagship, but the starships were no ordinary foes. They had fought tooth and nail against humanity, adapting to every tactic, countering every strategy. But Iris had something they didn't: human ingenuity, the relentless drive to survive. Humanity's gift for innovation had kept them alive this long, and it would be the thing that tipped the balance in their favor. The countdown ticked closer. 1 minute. She was in position. The alien fleet loomed ahead, their massive dreadnoughts forming a near-impenetrable barrier in space. But Iris's team wasn't going for the fleet, they were going for the heart of the beast. Her grip tightened. She fought to push the fear out of her mind. It was her only chance to win. They all knew the risks. But failure was not an option. 30 seconds. "Arlen, give me the signal," Iris ordered. A sharp tone rang through the comms, a signal to begin the assault. The fighters locked onto their targets, releasing their payloads in perfect synchronization. Explosions erupted, the shockwaves reverberating through space, but something was wrong. The enemy ships didn't stagger, didn't hesitate. They adapted. They were expecting them. A voice crackled through her comms. "Captain, we've been compromised." The secondary systems. The warning came too late. Her eyes widened in realization. Betrayal. From the heart of her own ranks. The entire mission had been a trap. The operatives who were supposed to infiltrate the flagship were dead before they even launched. And now Iris Rook, humanity's last hope, was cornered in a war that might just be lost before it even began. Iris stood at the shattered viewport of Sunspire Academy, the broken cityscape of Earth a distant, fading memory. Her heart hammered, a cold weight settling in her chest. The mission had failed. The attack on the alien flagship was never meant to be just a distraction, it was supposed to be their last stand, a way to turn the tide of this hopeless war. Now, it was over. The traitors had ensured that. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Captain." The voice snapped Iris out of her trance. She turned, meeting the sharp, cold eyes of Sergeant Callan, her second in command. His once pristine armor was dented and scorched from the escape, but his gaze was still steely. He'd been in this kind of mess before. "I didn't sign up for this," she muttered. "A trap. Right under our noses." Callan's jaw clenched, but he said nothing, letting the silence hang. The betrayal was clear in his eyes, but it hurt just as much in hers. How could it have happened? She trusted those soldiers. But now they were dead, their betrayal just another scar on humanity's tortured body. They had been so close, and yet. The comms buzzed, pulling her back from her dark thoughts. "Captain Rook, this is Arlen. We need to talk. Now." The urgency in Arlen's voice made her stomach drop. She didn't need to ask why. It was the same reason he had been trying to contact her since the mission's failure. "I'm listening," she replied, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "Meet me in the war room, Captain. We need to go over the intel. I found something." "What kind of something?" she asked, already dreading the answer. "There's more to this betrayal than we thought," Arlen said grimly. "I think we've been played." Iris's heart skipped. Played? By who? "I'll be there in 5. The war room was dark, the only light coming from the holographic maps flickering in the center of the table. Arlen stood by the display, his face taut with tension, his eyes focused on the rotating images of the alien fleet that were now drawing closer to Sunspire. "What have you got, Arlen?" Iris asked, stepping into the room and leaning over the table. Arlen ran a hand through his hair, clearly exhausted, but his resolve was still intact. I've been going through the intel logs from the attack, communications intercepted between our infiltrators and the Star Fleet. Iris raised an eyebrow. Star? You mean the traitors were working with them? That's the thing, Arlen said, his voice low. They weren't just working with them. They were planted by them. The Star had a mole inside our ranks for months, maybe longer. These soldiers, he paused, his jaw tightening. They were never ours to begin with. Iris felt her stomach drop. She had trusted them. Each of them had been handpicked by her, and yet they were nothing more than puppets. Her pulse quickened. The ramifications of this were worse than she had imagined. Why? Why now? Iris's voice was tight with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Why betray us now, when we were so close? I think this was the Star's plan all along. The strike wasn't just about taking down the flagship, it was a test. A test to see if we were ready for a counterattack. To see if we had the resolve left to fight. They knew we would react with everything we had. Arlen's words hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a battle, this was manipulation. A way to break humanity's will, to get them to overcommit, and then crush them when they were most vulnerable. What are you saying? Iris asked, her mind racing. They wanted us to strike back, so they could hit us harder? Yes. And now we're walking straight into their trap. Their fleet is poised to decimate what's left of Earth's defenses. We're on the edge of extinction, Iris. The weight of his words hung in the air, suffocating the hope she had been clinging to. The last remnants of humanity were now in jeopardy, and the very people she had trusted most had been the ones to seal their fate. Iris clenched her fists, her teeth gritting in rage. Not if I have anything to say about it. Arlen shot her a sidelong glance. I've got a plan, but we're going to need every last scrap of firepower we've got. The Star are coming for us, fast. We need to hit back before they land the final blow. Iris didn't hesitate. What's the plan? We're going to hit their supply lines, take out their reinforcements before they even reach Earth. If we can stop their fleet from getting fully resupplied, we might just buy ourselves enough time to get into position for a proper counterstrike. But it's going to be dangerous. We don't have the manpower to pull this off without casualties. Casualties? Iris muttered, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. If we don't do this, there won't be anyone left to count. She leaned in, her eyes burning with fierce determination. Give me the coordinates. I'll lead the charge. Are you sure? Arlen asked, his gaze searching her face for any sign of doubt. No time for second-guessing, Iris said, her voice hard as iron. We're doing this. Arlen nodded, pulling up the schematics of the Star's supply routes. Here, he said, tapping the map. We'll need to hit them at 3 critical points. If we take out the supply vessels here, and here, it'll cripple their support chain. They'll be forced to retreat, or risk losing everything. Iris studied the map, her mind working quickly. I'll lead the strike force myself. We'll move under the cover of the asteroid field, hit fast, hit hard. No time for mistakes. Arlen nodded grimly. I'll get the teams in position. We've got one shot at this. Then we make it count, Iris said, her gaze hardening with the fire of 1,000 battles. She had been pushed to the edge, but there was one thing the Star didn't understand about humanity: they didn't give up. Not ever. As she walked toward the hangar, her mind raced. The betrayal still stung, but it also lit a fire in her chest. They thought humanity was done. They thought they had seen the last of the Immortal Deathworlders. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Iris's breath came in short, harsh bursts as her fighter cut through the cold vacuum of space, weaving between asteroids with precise, deadly grace. Her hands gripped the controls, fingers working the triggers and levers like a second skin. The ship hummed beneath her, the engine's growl a constant reminder that time was running out. Every second brought the alien fleet closer, and every moment counted. Arlen's voice crackled over the comms, his tone sharp. Iris, we've got incoming. The star are moving faster than expected. I know, Iris replied, her voice steady, though her heart pounded in her chest. Just keep the fleet on track. We hit those supply lines or we're all dead. She could feel the tension building, like the final seconds before a detonator went off. They were here, deep in the asteroid field, a maze of space rock that would give them cover for a surprise strike. It was the only chance they had left. The rest of her team was spread out, their ships forming a tight formation around her. Her fleet was smaller now, a shadow of what it had been before the ambush. But it was still enough. The coordinates were locked. The supplies were vulnerable. If they could disrupt the star's resupply, they could cripple their entire operation. This is it, Iris muttered to herself, her eyes narrowing as the radar blinked red, warning of incoming enemy fighters. Without a moment's hesitation, she jammed the throttle forward, her ship tearing through the field of rocks, weaving expertly between obstacles. The enemy fleet loomed ahead, their massive warships forming a near-impenetrable blockade around the supply convoy. Iris, don't go in blind. Arlen's voice was frantic now, but Iris didn't need his caution. She'd already made her choice. We do this my way, Arlen, she said, voice cold as steel. We'll get them before they know what hit them. The first shots rang out as her team opened fire, laser cannons lighting up the dark void of space like distant stars. The enemy ships retaliated immediately, their plasma bolts streaking through space, missing by inches. Iris dodged them effortlessly, her ship a blur as it glided through the chaos. Her focus was singular now, the supply convoy. It had to be stopped. A sharp jolt shook her, followed by a loud crackle on the comms. Iris, you're taking too much fire. Fall back. The voice was Arlen's, but Iris's eyes were locked onto the target, her mind calculating the best way to strike. She couldn't afford to retreat, not now, not when victory was within reach. With a deep breath, she slammed the ship into a sharp turn, evading another wave of plasma fire. The enemy was relentless, but so was she. She spoke into the comms, voice low and calm, despite the storm of fire raging around her. Focus all fire on the rear supply ship. If we take it out, the rest will scatter. Her crew responded in unison, their weapons locking onto the target as Iris made her final approach. The star fighters were relentless, but Iris was faster, weaving through their ranks with precision that could only come from years of experience. You're getting too close. Arlen warned, his voice rising with panic. Iris, pull back. Now. But it was too late. The signal had been given. Her fighter was locked onto the supply ship, the targeting reticle flashing red. She slammed the firing button. The ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light, a shockwave reverberating through the void. The blast was deafening, even through the comms. But it wasn't over. The rest of the convoy had noticed, and they were now turning toward the source of the attack. The next few minutes were a blur of smoke and fire. Iris dodged, shot, and weaved her way through the chaos, her mind calculating every move with precision. But as she did, something was wrong. She could feel it, a subtle shift in the air, the feeling of something closing in. Arlen, she shouted into the comms. What's happening? What's that incoming signal? There was a brief silence before Arlen's voice came back, trembling with urgency. Iris, it's a trap. We've been followed. The Star Fleet is launching their full assault. Iris's heart skipped. The supply ships were a decoy. The real attack was about to begin. They had walked right into their hands. Get your ships out of there, she ordered, pulling sharply on the controls, her mind racing. The asteroid field was now a deadly maze, every turn, every shot from the enemy threatening to tear her apart. The enemy fleet was closing in fast, their warships overwhelming in size and power. Iris, we can't hold them off for much longer, Arlen's voice was strained. They've got the numbers. Keep fighting. Iris snapped, her eyes burning with resolve. She wasn't going to lose this. Not like this. Not after everything. We hit them with everything we've got. We don't back down. A sudden jolt hit her ship. The lights flickered, and her controls became sluggish. The hit had taken out a vital system. "Iris, you're critical." Arlen's voice was filled with panic now. "Your ship's been hit bad. We can't keep covering you." The words hit her like a physical blow. She had no time. The enemy was closing in. She could feel the weight of it all, the stakes, the countless lives, the sacrifices. And for a moment, she felt the crushing inevitability of failure. But then a voice cut through her thoughts, cold and certain. "We always fight. We don't surrender." Iris blinked, the words of her own inner resolve taking root once more. She wasn't done. She wasn't done, and neither was humanity. With one final, desperate move, Iris punched the thrusters and forced her ship forward into the heart of the enemy fleet, targeting their flagship, the heart of their power. She fired everything she had left. The ship's cannons roared in defiance. The world seemed to slow as the energy blasted through the massive warship. The flagship shuddered, then exploded in a cataclysmic eruption. For a brief, fleeting moment, Iris thought she could see the stars through the smoke. But then she was plummeting, falling, spiraling into the void. The last thing she saw was the fading glow of the destroyed fleet, the last spark of humanity's fury in the face of annihilation.